How can you safeguard your personal data against cyber threats? Nowadays, mas nagiging sophisticated na ang strategy na ginagawa ng mga cybercriminals para maging effective ang kanilang pakay para malusutan ang mga security na inilalatag laban sa kanila. In fact, sa pagpasok ng fourth quarter ng 2021 last year, tumaas ng 40% ang average weekly number of attacks globally. Pagdating sa klase ng threat kung alin ang nangunguna, based on the research made by Checkpoint, each week globally, 1 out of every 61 organizations are impacted by ransomware, and that's a 9% increase compared to 2020. Today, we will get to know the 8 common types of threats to help everyone have a better understanding on how and what types of threats the cybercriminals use to attack our devices and computer systems. So, for today's episode, we are going to talk about the different types of cybersecurity threats and on how it infiltrates our devices and computer systems. Below are the common types of threats. Number 1. Ransomware. Ransomware is a malware designed to use encryption to force the target of the attack to pay a ransom demand. Once present on the system, the malware encrypts the user's files and demands payment in exchange for the decryption key. Since modern encryption algorithms are unbreakable with the technology available, the only way to recover the encrypted files is to restore the data from a backup, if available, or to pay the ransom demand. Ransomware has become one of the most visible and prolific types of malware, and the COVID-19 pandemic provided an environment in which this type of malware has thrived. In recent years, some ransomware variants have also evolved to perform double extortion attacks. Ransomware such as Maze, Sudinokibi Rebel, Doppelpaymer, Nemty, and other ransomware variants steal copies of files before encryption, threatening to breach them if the user refuses to pay the ransom demand. While this trend began in late 2019 with Maze, it has continued to grow as more groups adopted it throughout 2021. This is an example of a ransom note posted to the desktop wallpaper of an infected machine during the payday phase. Number 2. Malware. Ransomware is another type of malware, but malware comes in a variety of different forms and can be used to achieve a number of different objectives. Malware variants may be designed to do anything from collecting and stealing sensitive information to presenting unwanted ads to causing permanent damage to an infected machine. The most common types of malware vary from one year to another as different types of attacks become more or less profitable to attackers. These are the most common types of malwares. First, cryptominers. Cryptominers are malware that uses the victim's computer to mine cryptocurrency and make a profit for the attacker. Next, mobile malwares. These are malwares targeting mobile devices, including malicious applications and attacks exploiting SMS and social media apps. Botnet malware. These are malware that infects a system and adds it to a botnet, where it participates in cyber attacks and other illegal activity under the command of the botnet controller. Infostealers. These are malwares that collect sensitive information from an infected computer and sends it to the malware operator. Banking Trojans. These are malwares that specifically targets financial information and attempts to steal banking websites, credentials, and similar informations. The ransomware. As we had mentioned this as the first type of threat, this was also a type of malware that encrypts the files on a user's computer and demands payment for the decryption key as a ransom. Number 3. Fileless Attacks. Antivirus solutions commonly attempt to detect malware on a device by inspecting each file on the device for signs of malicious content. Fileless malware attempts to bypass this approach to threat detection by not using a file. Instead, the malware is implemented as a set of commands to function that are built into the infected computer. This enables the malware to achieve the same objectives but can make it harder to detect for some defensive solutions. The main differentiator of fileless malware is its lack of files. It performs many of the same functions as traditional malware. For example, the Fritz Frog. This is a fileless peer-to-peer botnet malware detected in August 2020. It's designed to infect systems and mine cryptocurrencies. Number 4. Phishing. Phishing is one of the most common methods that attackers use to gain access to a target system. Often it is easier to trick a user by clicking on a malicious link or opening an attachment than to locate and successfully exploit a vulnerability in an organization's network. Phishing attacks can achieve a variety of goals, including credential theft, malware delivery, financial fraud, and theft of sensitive data. Phishing has historically been the most common method for cyber attackers to launch a campaign due to its ease of use and high success rate. During the COVID-19 pandemic, this trend had vastly accelerated as cybercriminals took advantage of employees working from outside the office and the climate of uncertainty regarding the virus. This had been also the primary method used by cybercriminals to exploit and take over the funds of almost 700 account holders of one of the leading commercial banks in the Philippines. It uses both email and SMS messaging to trick the account holders, which resulted to the exposure of their sensitive bank information, primarily the one-time password. Number 5. Man-in-the-middle attack. A man-in-the-middle attack bypasses these protections by breaking a connection into two pieces. By creating a separate encrypted connection with the client and the server, an attacker can read the data sent over the connection and modify it as desired before forwarding it onto its destination. One example of the medium attack is active eavesdropping, in which the attacker makes independent connections with the victims and relays messages between them to make them believe that they are talking directly to each other over a private connection, when in fact the entire conversation is controlled by the attacker. The attacker must be able to intercept all relevant messages passing between two victims and inject new ones. This is a straightforward circumstances that could happen to an unencrypted Wi-Fi. An attacker within the reception range of an unencrypted Wi-Fi access point could insert themselves as a man in the middle. Number 6. Malicious Apps. Many organizations focus their cybersecurity efforts on computers, but mobile devices are a growing threat to an organization's cybersecurity. As employees increasingly use mobile devices to do their work and access sensitive company data, malicious mobile applications are increasingly dangerous. These applications can do anything that desktop malware can, including stealing sensitive data, encrypting files with ransomware, and more. In 2020, mobile malware was the second most common types of malware worldwide. The most common mobile malware variants include X-Helper, Preamo, and Necro, are all Trojans with additional functionality, including ad fraud and click fraud. Mobile malware commonly takes advantage of vulnerabilities in mobile operating systems, like the remote code execution or RCE vulnerability, fixed in a batch of 43 Android security patches in January 2021. Number 7. Denial of service attack. Organizations' IT infrastructure and services like web applications, FTP, VPN, and email are critical to their ability to do business. Denial of service attacks are designed to deny access to critical services. This can be accomplished by exploiting a vulnerability in an application, causing it to crash, or by flooding a system with more data or requests than it is able to manage, rendering it unable to handle legitimate requests. In some cases, attackers will perform a random denial of service attack where a ransom payment is demanded to either stop an ongoing attack or prevent a threatened one. Number 8. Zero-day exploit. Software contains weaknesses and vulnerabilities, and many of these vulnerabilities reach production, where they are potentially exploitable by attackers. These production vulnerabilities are discovered internally at the company by external security researchers or by cyber attackers. In the third case, the cyber attackers can exploit these zero-day vulnerabilities in the system until the organization manages to patch the vulnerability, rendering it safe. All users of the system are potentially vulnerable to attack. So we have already identified the 8 common types of cybersecurity threats together with its process on how it can infiltrate our computer systems. On our next episode, we will discuss the process on how we can further defend our computer system from these cybersecurity threats and on how we can secure our sensitive data. Before we end up this episode, I just wanted to invite you to hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell icon below for you to get notified for my latest videos. Thank you and see you in my next video.